Welcome to the Daily Deep Dive 3D initiative of UPSC with Saurabh Kaushik.
It is great to be here.
So imagine a war breaks out in the Middle East. Missiles are flying, major shipping routes are freezing, and, well, the global oil market is in a total panic.
Right, which is basically a nightmare scenario for any economy.
Exactly. You would naturally expect the Indian economy to take a massive hit, maybe even see capital flight. But what if I told you that in the very first month of that conflict, the money flowing into India from that exact war-torn region actually surged by 8%?
I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Conventional wisdom says regional instability destroys economic lifelines.
Yeah, it really does.
But the data we are looking at today tells a much more complex, almost paradoxical story about how global events actually impact our domestic realities.
And that paradox is exactly why we're here today. You, the listener, are joining us on an intensive 80 to 100-minute journey through today's most crucial geopolitical, economic, and governance developments.
We are moving way beyond the neat binary headlines today.
We really are. We are digging into the murky mechanisms of how this all actually works. We're going to connect the dots across global choke points, high-stakes diplomacy, military shifts, and, well, massive domestic overhauls.
To give you a roadmap of where we are heading, we have a lot of ground to cover.
Let's do a rapid 60-second index overview of the 18 topics on our radar. Here we go. First, India-Iran diplomacy post-Hormuz. 2, India's Israel Balancing Act. 3, the new army chief.
4, that surprising Gulf remittance surge you just mentioned.
5, sovereign AI. 6, India Semiconductor Mission 2.0. 7, criminal justice digitization. 8, FCRA 2.0 and e-OCI.
9, the EPFO upgrade. 10, the right to a lawyer.
11, the Indo-Pacific's future. 12, the Great Nicobar Dilemma. 13, climate tipping points at Bonn. 14, 9 years of GST.
15, the Haldiva's anniversary. 16, PMKSY irrigation.
17, the Academic Bank of Credits. And finally, 18, the RBI governor's warning on fiscal risks.
It is a massive agenda.
It really is.
But, to truly understand the domestic economy and where India stands today, we first have to look outward at the global choke points.
Right.
We basically have to start with the Strait of Hormuz and the shockwaves still emanating from Iran.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have this June 30th to July 1st phone call between Prime Minister Modi and the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian.
Yes, and to understand the gravity of this call, we have to rewind to February 28, 2026.
The joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike on Tehran.
Exactly. That wasn't just a military escalation. It fundamentally altered the Iranian state. The critical data point from the source material is the casualty of that February 28th strike.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Yes. He was killed. I mean, he'd been the supreme leader of Iran for 34 years.
Wow, 34 years.
And see, in the Iranian system, the supreme leader is not just some ceremonial figurehead. He sits above the president.
Right, he commands the armed forces, holds ultimate authority over the nuclear program, all of it.
Precisely. His sudden death is basically the most dramatic political vacuum in Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution.
Which puts Masoud Pezeshkian in a really bizarre position, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, he was the elected president, but overnight he became the de facto highest political authority in the country.
Yeah.
So how does a system that relies entirely on a supreme leader actually manage a sudden succession like this?
Well, the mechanism of succession is entirely internal to Iran's clerical establishment. It falls to the Assembly of Experts.
Okay.
This is an 88-member body of senior Shia clerics. Their constitutional duty is to select the new supreme leader.
Are they close to picking someone?
Currently, they are debating whether to elevate an individual, like Mohammed Baker Mujtahid Shabastari, or perhaps attempt a collective clerical council structure.
A council?
Yes, which would be historically unprecedented and incredibly complex to manage.
And while 88 clerics debate the future of the nation, the geopolitical clock is just ticking furiously.
Absolutely.
The timeline here is breathless. You have the initial strike on February 28, then months of conflict leading to the Muscat diplomatic framework on June 14, followed closely by the U.S.-Iran ceasefire memorandum of understanding on June 17. Now, we are looking at Khamenei's massive state funeral starting July 4 in Tehran, culminating in his burial on July 9 in Mashhad.
Yes, Mashhad.
I actually have to ask about that specific location. Why Mashhad and not Tehran for the burial?
Well, Mashhad is Iran's second largest city, located in the northeast near the border with Turkmenistan and Afghanistan.
Okay.
But its true significance is religious. It is home to the Imam Reza Shrine.
Right, the massive one.
Exactly. It's physically the largest mosque in the world. Imam Reza is one of Shia Islam's most revered figures.
Yeah.
So burying Khamenei there is a highly calculated symbolic move. It intertwines his legacy with the core religious identity of the nation.
Wow. Into this highly volatile, deeply symbolic environment New Delhi has to maneuver.
It's quite a task.
When I look at India's diplomatic position here, it feels like trying to walk a tightrope in a hurricane.
That is a very accurate analogy.
We have $5 to $6 billion in Indian assets currently frozen under U.S. sanctions, just sitting in accounts at places like UCO Bank.
Yeah.
And then we have the Strait of Hormuz, which is an absolute jugular vein for our energy security, still effectively contested.
Right. And the source notes there are reportedly 80 naval mines still remaining in those shipping lanes.
80 mines! That's terrifying! And we just witnessed the ever-lovely merchant vessel incident on June 25.
Exactly. So the mechanism of India's response has to be a masterclass in strategic ambiguity.
How so?
Throughout the war, India maintained open channels with Iran. New Delhi never outright condemned the U.S.-Israeli strikes. But simultaneously, India abstained from multiple UN General Assembly resolutions that would have cornered Tehran.
So, playing both sides, let's look at the funeral delegation specifically, because that sends a very loud message. We did not send PM Modi or External Affairs Minister Jaishankar.
Right. They cited schedule conflicts, which, as you know, is the standard diplomatic veil for a deliberate downgrade in representation.
It effectively communicates, we acknowledge the transition, but we're withholding full political endorsement at this chaotic moment.
Exactly.
Instead, the delegation consists of the Bihar governor, LT Gen, Red Syed Ada Hasnain, and the Minister of State for External Affairs, Pabitra Margarita.
Which is distinctly a mid-level delegation.
But then, on the flip side, PM Modi formally invited President Pezeshkian to the BRICS Leaders Summit that India is hosting later in 2026.
This is the dual-track strategy in action. You keep the current clerical chaos at arm's length by sending a mid-level delegation to the funeral.
Right.
But you pull the institutional state of Iran closer for the economic future by inviting the president to BRICS.
Because Iran was just admitted into BRICS in January 2024.
Yes. India wants to ensure that whatever government emerges from the Assembly of Experts, they view New Delhi as a crucial multilateral partner, not a Western proxy.
I see the logic. But that delicate dance with Iran is directly complicated by India's deep structural ties to the other side of that February 28th strike.
You mean Israel?
Yes, Israel. And to the listener, we need to state up front that our analysis here strictly examines the structural reality of India's foreign policy.
Absolutely.
We are looking at the strategic math, setting aside any ideological positions on the Israel-Palestine or U.S.-Iran conflicts. We are not taking sides here.
That objectivity is crucial for this deep dive. The source material outlines what it actually calls India's Israel habit.
The Israel habit, that's a strong phrase.
It is. We are currently Israel's largest arms customer globally, spending roughly $2 to $2.5 billion annually.
What are we actually getting for that money? It's not just, bullets and rifles.
Far from it. We are procuring advanced, integrated systems. The Barak 8 surface-to-air missile defense systems are vital for both our naval ships and land borders.
Okay.
We rely heavily on Heron drones for high-altitude surveillance along the LAC with China. We use Spike anti-tank guided missiles.
So a lot of high-end hardware.
Yes, and beyond kinetic weapons, the relationship is deeply embedded in agriculture, desalination technology, and crucial cyber intelligence.
Which naturally brings up the 2020 NSO Pegasus context, right?
Exactly. The intelligence sharing apparatus between New Delhi and Tel Aviv is profound.
But the underlying contradiction is just glaring. That deep defense relationship with Israel sits in direct opposition to India's absolute economic dependency on the Arab Gulf.
It's a massive structural dilemma.
We have 8.5 million Indian citizens living and working in the Gulf states. In FY26 alone, they sent back $115 billion in remittances.
Yes.
Furthermore, the Indian economy simply stops functioning without Gulf energy. We source 45% of our crude oil and 30% of our LNG from the region.
So when February 28 happened and the U.S.-Israeli strike hit Tehran, India was practically shoved into a geopolitical corner.
We require Israeli technology to secure our hostile borders, but we require Gulf oil and remittances to keep our domestic economy from collapsing.
Right.
So how does the Gulf actually leverage that dependency against India? Do they explicitly threaten to cut off the oil?
It is rarely that crude. The leverage is applied diplomatically, usually behind closed doors.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
States like the UAE and Saudi Arabia are increasingly linking the depth of their bilateral relations, including sovereign wealth fund investments in India, to New Delhi's stance on Palestine and the broader Middle East conflict.
Interesting. If we look at the historical evolution, India was actually the first non-Arab state to recognize the PLO and recognize the state of Palestine back in 1988.
Right. But since normalizing full diplomatic ties with Israel in 1992, that stance has evolved drastically.
It really has.
While India officially maintains support for a two-state solution, it has progressively softened its public pressure on Israel.
Which culminated in India abstaining from several critical UN resolutions regarding Gaza between 2024 and 2026.
Yes, and the UAE has reportedly questioned India's neutrality because of that, pointing directly to the depth of the defense cooperation with Israel.
This highlights a massive vulnerability for us. If your entire foreign policy is constantly held hostage because you rely on Israel for weapons and the Gulf for energy, the only way to break that cycle is self-reliance. You have to start manufacturing your own weapons and modernizing your own military doctrine, which transitions us perfectly into the major leadership change in the Indian Army.
Right, General Dhiraj, Seth.
Yes, General Seth has just taken over as the 31st Chief of Army Staff on June 30th, 2026.
He succeeds General Upendra Dwivedi, who retired after an extensive 4-decade career.
And General Seth received his ceremonial Guard of Honor at South Block in New Delhi, right? The traditional seat of the defense establishment.
Okay.
What really jumps out from the notes is General Seth's background. He was commissioned into the Armored Corps in December 1986.
Yes.
The material points out this is the first time we have had an Armored Corps Army chief since General Shankar Roy Chowdhury back in 1997, almost 30 years.
It's a significant shift.
Why does this specific branch of the military matter so much at the top level?
Well, it essentially dictates the officer's foundational strategic mindset. Historically, the top leadership in the Indian Army comes from the infantry or artillery branches.
Nice.
Infantry focuses on holding ground, close-quarter combat, and mountainous terrain.
Right. Very methodical.
The Armored Corps, however, revolves around tanks and mechanized warfare. It requires a mindset built on rapid maneuvers, deep strikes across open terrain, and aggressive mobility.
So General Seth brings this highly mobile perspective.
Yes, alongside a very rare resume. He has commanded 2 operational commands, the Southwestern Command in Jaipur and the Southern Command in Pune.
So he inherently understands the mechanics of a multi-front challenge, particularly on the western border.
Exactly.
But he is inheriting a massive structural legacy from General Dwivedi. The notes mention Operation Sindoor in May 2025.
Right.
While the tactical details remain classified, it's described as India's most significant military operation in decades.
And there's also the evolution of the nuclear posture, with the CSE report noting 12 deployed warheads during Dwivedi's tenure.
The most enduring structural legacy he inherits, however, seems to be the Integrated Battle Group, or IBG.
Yes, General Dwivedi managed to get 31 IBG sanction letters approved by the government in a remarkably short 14 to 15-month window.
Wow, that is fast for military procurement.
It is. As of July 2026, they have already initiated the IBGization of the 17 Mountain Strike Corps.
For a listener who doesn't study military doctrine, explain the actual mechanism of an IBG. I mean, why is this better than what we had?
Well, under the old system, the Army operated in massive formations called divisions, which could consist of 10,000 to 15,000 troops.
Okay, that's huge.
If a conflict broke out, mobilizing a division, getting its artillery from one place, its infantry from another, and its logistics in order could take weeks.
Weeks.
Yes, and by the time they reached the border, the enemy was already entrenched.
Right.
An IBG throws that entirely out the window. It is a smaller, self-contained, highly agile fighting unit of about 5,000 troops.
So much leaner.
Crucially, it integrates infantry, armor, artillery, and air support from the very beginning. An IBG is designed to mobilize and strike within 12 to 24 hours.
That's a game changer. So General Seth's mandate is to accelerate this transition, aiming for a full IBG rollout across the Army by 2029.
Yes.
But he also has to oversee the mechanics of theaterization. We hear this term thrown around constantly, IT North, IT West, IT Maritime. What does theaterization actually change on the ground?
It basically ends inter-service silos.
Okay.
Historically, the Army, Navy, and Air Force operated under their own separate commands. If an Army commander in the North needed air support, he had to request it from an Air Force commander who might be sitting in a different headquarters, balancing different priorities.
That sounds horribly inefficient during a war.
It was. Theaterization merges these assets. An integrated theater command, like IT North facing China, places all Army, air, and potentially naval assets in that geographical region under one single, unified operational commander.
So it is all about unified kinetic response. And he's managing the structural overhaul while simultaneously integrating advanced technology like artificial intelligence and loitering munitions into these new Harov battalions.
It's a massive modernization push.
On top of all that, there is the human resources challenge. The Agni Path scheme, launched in 2022, recruits soldiers on 4-year contracts as Agniveers.
Right.
The very first batch is finishing their 4-year service right now in 2026.
And General Seth has to manage the offboarding of 75% of these trained soldiers into paramilitary or civilian roles without degrading the operational readiness of the combat units they're leaving.
It is a phenomenal balancing act of technology, doctrine, and human capital. But while the Army protects the borders, another group of Indians is quietly securing the balance of payments.
Which brings us to a massive surprise in the economic data during the West Asia crisis.
Right. Topic 4. The Ministry of Finance released data showing that Gulf remittances to India in April 2026, the very month the Hormuz conflict was raging, hit roughly $12.5 billion.
Yes, that is an 8% increase compared to April 2025.
Logic suggests that when a war zone erupts, the local economy freezes and remittances should collapse. How did the exact opposite happen?
To understand the why, we have to break down 3 specific reasons that triggered this surge.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first is behavioral, fear-driven precautionary transfers.
Meaning panic.
Yes, when conflict escalates rapidly in the Gulf, the immediate fear among the diaspora is sudden evacuation.
Right, getting out safely.
As a precautionary measure, millions of Indian workers immediately emptied their local Gulf savings accounts and wired the entirety of their liquid assets back to family accounts in India.
So they were moving the capital while the banking systems were still operational.
Exactly.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Get the money out before the ATMs go down. What is the second reason?
The currency effect.
Okay.
Most Gulf currencies, like the UAE dirham or the Saudi riyal, are strictly pegged to the US dollar.
Right.
During this geopolitical crisis, global investors panicked and flooded into the US dollar as a safe haven, causing it to strengthen massively.
And conversely, emerging market currencies, including the Indian rupee, depreciated sharply.
Yes. At the peak of the crisis, the rupee slid to 97 against the dollar, down from the low 80s.
Let's do the math on that. If I'm a worker in Dubai sending home exactly the same amount of dirhams I send every month, the moment that money hits the Forex exchange, the depreciation of the rupee means a significantly larger pile of Indian currency lands in my family's bank account in Kerala.
Exactly, the mechanism. The exchange rate arbitrage worked heavily in favor of the remiter.
Wow. And the third reason?
Continued employment in the oil sector during the crisis. See, the foundational industry in the Gulf is oil and gas extraction and export. Even with shipping in the Strait of Hormuz facing severe disruptions, the actual inland oil facilities, refineries, and associated infrastructure never stopped operating.
So workers in energy, heavy construction, and the supporting healthcare sectors were not laid off.
Right. They continued earning their wages throughout the initial crisis.
This dynamic is a massive lifeline for India. The notes classify remittances as invisible receipts in the current account of the balance of payments.
Yeah.
India is the undisputed world leader here, pulling in about $135 billion totally in FY26. And a staggering 45 to 50% of that total originates just from the Gulf states.
And we cannot overstate how critical this was during the April crisis.
Because of the oil prices.
Exactly. When the Hormuz conflict spiked, global crude oil prices naturally skyrocketed. India imports over 80% of its oil, so our import bill expanded massively overnight.
Right.
If remittances had collapsed at the same time our oil bill was surging, India's current account deficit would have exploded. The rupee would have crashed far beyond 97.
So the reality is that low-skilled and semi-skilled Indian workers in the Gulf effectively cushioned the entire national macroeconomy from a catastrophic shock.
It is a profound realization,
Mm-hmm.
but it also exposes a deep vulnerability in our economic model. We are relying on low-skilled diaspora labor in fossil fuel economies to balance our books today. However, tomorrow's economic supremacy requires dominating emerging tech, specifically AI.
Which leads us into topic 5, the urgent debate surrounding sovereign AI.
Right.
The arguments laid out in recent pieces from The Hindu and the Indian Express are stark. They argue that India is in a rapidly closing 5 to 10-year critical window spanning from 2024 to roughly 2035 to establish foundational AI capabilities.
Yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. I struggle to understand the panic here. You look at the global tech landscape, and Indian talent is ubiquitous.
True.
We have all these Indian origin CEOs at Google, Microsoft, IBM. Our engineers are the foundational backbone of places like OpenAI and Anthropic. If we are supplying the brains to Silicon Valley, why are we so far behind in building our own sovereign AI?
Because human talent is only the top layer of the AI stack. Sovereign AI is defined by ownership of the entire mechanism.
Meaning the hardware.
Meaning everything. It means having an AI that is trained on Indian computational hardware, utilizing uniquely Indian datasets, and governed strictly by Indian legal frameworks.
So totally independent of US or Chinese hyperscalers.
Entirely. Independent of Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, all of them.
So the infrastructure gap is the real bottleneck, not the software engineer.
It is the compute. To train a massive foundational large language model, you need GPUs, graphics processing units.
Like the NVIDIA ones.
Yes, NVIDIA's H100 and H200 chips are the industry standard. These chips perform the simultaneous mathematical calculations required for machine learning at a scale standard processors cannot achieve.
And the US and China have a ton of these.
Millions of them, deployed in massive data centers. India currently has fewer than 10,000 GPUs dedicated to AI research in our public and academic institutions.
Fewer than 10,000. It's like trying to win the space race with a model rocket.
It really is.
The government clearly sees this gap, though. They launched the India AI mission in 2024 with a budget allocation of 10,371 crore rupees.
Which is a critical initial step. The primary goal of the mission is to construct a 10,000 GPU cluster, dubbed the National AI Compute Facility.
Okay.
It also directs funding toward AI centers of excellence within the IIT network, supports deep tech startups under the Airavat initiative, and focuses heavily on building India-specific datasets, such as the Pashini project, which aggregates regional language data.
Well, we certainly don't lack data. A digitally connected population of 1 billion people generates an unimaginable amount of data across dozens of distinct languages.
Sure.
But if we lack the domestic compute to process that data, we are essentially just exporting our raw digital resources to be processed by foreign machines.
Exactly. And the source warns that failing to build domestic compute leaves us vulnerable to a new form of digital colonialism.
We only need to look at China's trajectory to see the alternative. Under their Made in China 2025 policy, they invested hundreds of billions into both AI development and semiconductor sovereignty.
Yes, and because of that physical infrastructure, they now possess indigenous foundation models like DeepSeek, Baidu's Ernie, and Alibaba's Qwen.
Right.
They have Huawei manufacturing Ascend AI chips to bypass U.S. export controls. They own every layer of their technological stack.
India is trying to carve out regulatory space for this, at least globally. I see on India's 2026 BRICS chairship agenda, there's a formal proposal for a BRICS AI governance framework.
That is a diplomatic maneuver to ensure the global rules of AI aren't exclusively dictated by the European Union's AI Act or United States executive orders.
Okay.
India wants a regulatory environment that favors the developmental needs of the global south.
But a governance framework is just ink on paper if you don't own the machines running the algorithms, right? You can't build sovereign AI without physical chips.
Which leads directly to India's most expensive technology policy to date, ISM 2.0.
Topic 6. The India Semiconductor Mission 2.0. The Finance Ministry recently cleared a mammoth proposal for 1.25 lakh crore rupees. In dollar terms, that is roughly $15 billion.
It is massive. To contextualize that scale, ISM 1.0 was funded at 76,000 crore rupees.
So they are effectively doubling down.
Yes, the government is pouring resources into this sector.
I suppose importing 100% of our critical semiconductors today is just as dangerous as importing 100% of our oil.
Absolutely. The Hormuz crisis demonstrated how quickly physical supply chains can snap. The global semiconductor supply chain is terrifyingly fragile due to intense geographical concentration.
Taiwan. Right.
Yes. The manufacturing of the world's most advanced sub-5 nanometer chips is overwhelmingly dominated by a single company, TSMC, located on the island of Taiwan.
So if geopolitical tensions escalate into a Taiwan Strait crisis, whether a blockade or an invasion by China, the global supply of advanced computing hardware simply stops.
That is a nightmare scenario for any national security planner, which makes strategic autonomy here vital.
So what exactly is this $15 billion of ISM 2.0 buying us? We aren't suddenly going to start manufacturing the cutting-edge 3-nanometer chips that TSMC produces, are we?
No, and attempting to do so immediately would actually be a misallocation of resources.
Why is that?
India's strategy focuses on mature node chips, specifically targeting the 12 to 16 nanometer technology bracket by 2030. Mature nodes represent 70% of total global chip demand.
Ah, I see.
These are the workhorse chips that run defense systems, telecommunications infrastructure, consumer electronics, and most importantly, electric vehicles.
So we are targeting industrial volume and foundational self-reliance over sheer technological bragging rights.
Exactly. Under ISM 1.0, the foundation was laid. We have Tata Electronics partnering with PSMC to build a 28-nanometer fabrication plant in Dholera, Gujarat, which is designed as a massive greenfield smart city.
Right.
Additionally, we have OSAT plants being constructed by Micron and CG Power in Sanand.
Understanding OSAT is crucial to understanding India's entry strategy here. OSAT stands for Outsourced Semiconductor Assembly and Test.
Yes, it is the downstream segment of the supply chain.
So you take the completed, highly complex silicon wafers fabricated elsewhere, cut them down into individual chips, package them, and run the testing.
Right. It is a highly labor-intensive process, which perfectly leverages India's workforce scale.
And it gets us into the supply chain quickly.
Exactly. It allows India to integrate into the global value chain immediately, generating revenue and expertise, while the far more complex fabrication plants are being built. ISM 2.0 aims to drastically expand this entire ecosystem with a target of creating over 100,000 direct high-tech jobs by 2030.
We desperately need these chips domestically because our entire model of governance now relies on digital infrastructure.
It really does.
Speaking of digital governance, this domestic tech push is currently powering a massive overhaul of our criminal justice system. Topic 7.
Yes, we are looking at the Ministry of Home Affairs' ambitious target for a comprehensive digital rollout across the entire criminal justice system by 2027.
The architecture relies on two massive integrated systems, CCTNS and ICJS.
Right. CCTNS is the Crime and Criminal Tracking Network in Systems. It serves as the foundational database, connecting over 16,000 individual police stations nationwide.
Okay, and ICJS?
ICJS is the Interoperable Criminal Justice System. This acts as the central nervous system, taking the police data from CCTNS and seamlessly plugging it into the digital networks of the courts, the prison systems, and the forensics labs.
To understand the urgency behind this rollout, we have to look at the legal mechanisms that changed recently. In 2023, Parliament passed the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita, or BNSS.
Which officially replaced the colonial-era Code of Criminal Procedure.
Right, and the BNSS doesn't just encourage digital processes, it legally mandates them.
It does. It requires electronic filing of FIRs, the issuance of electronic summons, and the strict digital logging of all evidence. The BNSS is legally unworkable without this robust IT backbone.
Let's walk through the practical mechanism of how this changes policing. If an individual is arrested in Delhi today for a crime that was originally committed in Chennai, under the old physical system, moving those case files could take weeks.
Easily. It often resulted in procedural delays or lost files.
But under the fully integrated ICJS, the Delhi police can instantly access the Chennai FIR, verify warrants, and review criminal history in real time.
Yes. The magistrate can view the evidence digitally during the remand hearing. The forensics lab uploads the DNA report directly into the e-court system the moment the test is complete.
The current progress is actually substantial. CCTNS is now operational in over 99% of police stations across all 36 states and union territories.
And digital FIR registration rates have crossed 85%.
So what are the bottlenecks?
The primary remaining bottlenecks are achieving full integration with the forensic labs, which is only about 40% complete, and bringing the prosecution directorates fully online.
The sheer scale of the problem they are attempting to solve is staggering. The Indian judicial system is currently groaning under the weight of over 5 crore pending cases.
50 million cases.
1 crore of those make up the specific pending case challenge that this digital push is designed to eliminate.
By eradicating the phenomenon of lost files and enabling virtual hearings, the goal is to massively unclog the lower judiciary.
It is a revolution in bureaucratic efficiency. However, as the next topic demonstrates, real-time digital tracking isn't solely reserved for domestic criminals.
Right. It is also being deployed to monitor foreign money entering civil society.
Which brings us to topic 8, the FCRA 2.0 portal and the e-OCI card.
Now, for our listeners, we must clearly state that this is a subject of intense domestic and international debate.
Absolutely. The government's stated rationale focuses strictly on national security, anti-money laundering, and financial transparency.
Conversely, civil society organizations and international rights groups argue the underlying goal is state surveillance and the chilling of political dissent.
And our role here is not to validate either stance, but to objectively examine the mechanics of the new policy.
The mechanics represent a fundamental shift in oversight. FCRA is the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act.
Right.
Under the previous framework, NGOs receiving foreign funds were required to submit annual or quarterly bulk returns. The regulatory oversight was entirely retrospective.
So the government reviewed how the money was spent long after it had entered the country?
Exactly. The new FCRA 2.0 portal dismantles that system, replacing it with a mechanism for real-time transaction monitoring.
So if an NGO working in rural development receives a wire transfer from a donor in London, that transaction immediately triggers an entry on a live dashboard at the Ministry of Home Affairs in New Delhi.
Precisely. Furthermore, the dashboard utilizes automated algorithmic flagging.
Okay, how does that work?
If the system detects a sudden, unusually large influx of capital, or if funds originate from specific categorized countries of concern, the transaction is instantly highlighted.
This technological shift allows the state to initiate immediate enforcement actions, such as freezing the transfer, rather than waiting a year to read a report.
Yes.
How does this real-time flagging actually affect an NGO on the ground? I mean, what is the pushback?
Civil society advocates argue it creates a paralyzing administrative environment. The core fear is that if an organization publishes research that is critical of government policies, this real-time financial scrutiny can be easily weaponized.
So a flag transaction could lead to frozen accounts, instantly halting payroll and field operations.
Exactly, tying the NGO up in endless bureaucratic hurdles. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF, has repeatedly cited the broader FCRA framework as a tool utilized to restrict civil society space in India.
Alongside the launch of FCRA 2.0, Amit Shah also rolled out the e-OCI card. OCI stands for Overseas Citizen of India. We have about 45 lakh OCI card holders globally.
These are people of Indian origin who enjoy long-term, visa-free travel and parity with non-resident Indians in most economic fields.
Though they lack constitutional rights like voting or buying agricultural land.
Right. Historically, the OCI was issued as a physical, passport-like booklet. The new policy digitizes this entirely, making the e-OCI available on the UMang app,
which is the Unified Mobile Application for Centralized Citizen Services. This push to put everything on mobile apps like UMang extends even to the average Indian worker's retirement funds.
Yes, which leads us to topic 9, the EPFO upgrade.
The Employees Provident Fund Organization is migrating to a centralized IT platform 2.0. We should frame this strictly through the lens of GS2 governance and labor.
It is basically the labor welfare equivalent of the digital push we saw in the criminal justice system.
Moving from fragmented regional databases to a centralized, interoperable system for the Indian workforce.
Yes. The pain point here is familiar to anyone who has changed jobs across state lines. If you work in Mumbai and move to Bangalore, transferring your PF balance can be a bureaucratic nightmare.
The Centralized IT Platform 2.0 aims to fix that, dismantling those regional silos.
Exactly, enabling seamless, automated claim settlements and reducing tracking errors.
We're speeding up justice and governance with all this IT, but the Supreme Court recently reminded us that speed can't come at the cost of basic constitutional rights.
Which brings us to topic 10. This was a profound judgment. The Supreme Court reaffirmed that every accused, no matter how heinous the crime, gets free legal aid.
The specific phrasing was striking. Even the wicked have the right to a lawyer. The specific case involved gang rape and murder. The trial court proceeded, but the legal aid counsel assigned by the state was found to be totally ineffective.
And the Supreme Court intervened, set aside the conviction, and ordered a full retrial specifically because of that inadequate representation.
To comprehend this, we must examine the constitutional mechanisms. You have the 1986 Sukdas case, right?
Yes, Justice Bhagwati established a radical precedent there. He ruled that if a magistrate fails to inform an impoverished accused of their right to free legal aid, the ensuing trial is completely vitiated.
Meaning legally corrupted from its inception. This is based on Article 22.1 and Article 39A, the directive principle directing the state to provide free legal aid.
Exactly. The state created an LLSA to fulfill this, but the reality exposes a massive quality gap in legal aid.
Because state-appointed lawyers are often underpaid and overburdened.
Right. The Supreme Court drew a hard line. Just stamping a lawyer's name on a file isn't enough. The representation must be effective.
It's a philosophical angle, isn't it? A fair conviction is worth more to the rule of law than a fast conviction. This is what separates democracies from authoritarian regimes.
That is a perfect synthesis. And expanding this concept of a rules-based democratic order outward brings us to topic 11.
The Indo-Pacific. The analysis argues that the Indo-Pacific architecture, Quad, AUKUS, CPTPP, survives Trump's transactional, trade-heavy, America-first foreign policy.
To analyze this neutrally, we have to unpack the origins. The Indo-Pacific concept gained traction with Shinzo Abe in 2007. Why does it survive U.S. political shift?
Because of China's assertiveness.
Precisely. The South China Sea militarization. The LAC clashes for India. Every QUIA member has an independent reason to maintain this order.
Let's detail India's specific multi-alignment role. We are deeply in the Quad, accessing GE F-414 engines and MQ-9B drones, but we are excluded from AUKUS.
Right, because AUKUS requires strict treaty-level commitments for sharing nuclear sub-technology. That conflicts with India's strategic autonomy, like maintaining ties with Russia and Iran.
But projecting power in the Indo-Pacific requires physical maritime infrastructure, which brings us to a massive controversial project in India's own backyard. Topic 12.
The Great Nicobar Project. We must present the strategic necessity versus the environmental cost objectively.
It is a 72,000 crore rupee mega project. Galathea Bay Transshipment Port, International Airport, 350,000 person township, and a power plant.
The strategic justification is geography. Galathea Bay is just 150 kilometers from the Malacca Strait.
Which is crucial for countering China, right?
Yes. But contrast this strategic win with the cost. 130 square kilometers of tropical rainforest lost, and the existential threat to the Shampan PVTG.
They are an isolated tribe with no Gram Saba, numbering just 200 to 400 individuals.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? The source introduces the Roljan veil of ignorance. If you didn't know if you'd be born an Indian strategic planner or a Shampan child, would you approve this project?
It ruthlessly exposes the brutal calculus inherent in state development. And sacrificing local ecology for development is exactly what has led the entire planet to the brink.
Which leads us to topic 13. At the Bonn Climate Conference, preparing for COP30 in 2026, India is demanding clarity on defining and governing climate tipping points.
Bonn is the UN technical hub. The tipping points are terrifying. West Antarctic ice sheet, Amazon die-off, permafrost methane, AMOC collapse.
All driven by crossing the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. Why is India demanding legal definitions here?
Liability. India is invoking CBDR-RC, common but differentiated responsibilities. India wants historical emitters, like the US and Europe, held financially liable for loss and damage.
Because India is incredibly vulnerable. We're facing monsoon deficits and 35-degree wet bulb temps. We need massive funding for climate adaptation.
Estimated at over $500 billion by 2030, which requires massive state revenue.
Bringing us to topic 14. 9 years of GST, July-born 2026, marks 9 years since the midnight launch in 2017.
It replaced 17 taxes and 23 cesses. Taxpayers grew from 65 lakh to 1.46 crore. FY26 revenue hit 22.08 lakh crore, crossing 2 lakh crore monthly in April 2026.
It's simplifying taxation, but the unfinished agenda is glaring. Petroleum, real estate resale, and electricity are missing.
Because states want revenue flexibility, especially since the state compensation regime ended in 2022.
Today we debate rate slabs in the GST Council, but 171 years ago, illegal exploitative taxes sparked one of the bloodiest rebellions in Indian history. Topic 15.
Divas. June 30 commemorates the 1855 Santhal Revolt led by Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu against British authority and the Dikas, the exploitative outsiders.
Mapped to Bhagnadi village in Jharkhand, driven by the 1793 permanent settlement and usurious moneylenders.
60,000 to 80,000 Santhals mobilized and 15,000 to 20,000 were killed.
It's massively relevant today when you connect it to the 1876 Tenancy Act, the Fifth Schedule, and PISA in 1996.
That tribal dependency on the land back then mirrors modern India's agrarian reliance on the monsoon today.
Topic 16. PMKSY, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. We're reviewing this in the context of a severe 35% monsoon deficit in June 2026.
The components are AIBP for stalled projects, HKKP and PDMC per drop more crop.
Microirrigation saving 30 to 50% water over 75 lakh hectares. Microirrigation is to farming what fiber optic is to internet, maximum efficiency, minimum waste.
Exactly.
Just as PMKSY builds physical infrastructure for our crops, the government is building digital infrastructure for our students. Topic 17.
The Academic Bank of Credits, or ABC, and the APRID from Class 1 onwards. MOE's NEP 2020 initiatives.
The dropout crisis is real. Only 27% of undergrad starters finish. ABC acts as a digital credit repository for multiple exit.
You get a certificate in year 1, diploma in year 2, degree in year 3 or 4.
Like the example from the source. 40 credits at an IIT, a 2-year work break, 60 credits at a state uni, 20 credits online equals 1 recognized degree.
Fixing human capital is the only way India can navigate the macroeconomic dangers ahead.
Which brings us to our final topic, 18. The RBI governor's warning on the state fiscal tightrope and global geopolitical fragmentation.
This synthesizes everything, from the Hormuz crisis in Topic 1 and semiconductor wars in Topic 6 to climate tipping points in 13. It creates this exact fragmentation.
Meanwhile, states must balance immense domestic needs like legal aid, tribal welfare, and climate adaptation on a fiscal tightrope.
Yes. And observing this brings us to a final provocative thought. We've seen how digital tracking is revolutionizing criminal justice with CCTNS, monitoring foreign funds with FCRA, tracking workers with EPFO, and now following students with APRR.
The state has never been more aware of its citizens.
Exactly. The question for you, the listener, to mull over is this. As we build sovereign AI on top of all these interconnected digital databases, does this ultimate efficiency guarantee better justice, or does it require a completely new definition of privacy in the 21st century?
That is something to really think about. Thank you for joining this massive deep dive. Keep questioning the headlines, and we will see you next time.